Is it there? Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So as Maharaj indicated, we've covered a lot in the last day, 5 cantos. And we're on the 10th canto right now. A very famous verse. I'm sure a number of you know this verse by heart. Tatenu kampam sukshamikshamano Punjana evatma kritam vipakam Hridvag vapurbir vidadham namaste Jivetayo mukti pade sadhaya bhak Tatenu kampam sukshamikshamano Punjana evatma kritam vipakam Hridvag vapurbir vidam nam namaste Jiveti yomukti pade sadayabha Tatenu kampam sukshamikshamano Punjana evatma kritam vipakam Hridvag vapurbir vidanam namaste Jivetayo mukti pade sadayabhak Tatenu kampam sukshamikshamano Punjana evatma kritam vipakam Hridvag vapurbir vidanam namaste Jivetayo mukti pade. Ladies? Tatenu kampam sukshamikshamano Punjana evatma kritam vipakam Hridvag vapurbir vidanam namaste Jivetayo mukti pade sabhayabhak. So tat means therefore, and te means your, and anukampam is an important word. It means compassion. Sukshamik means earnestly hoping for. So earnestly hoping for Krishna's compassion. And then bunjana means enduring. So this is the next point, right? So enduring what? Eva means certainly, and atmakritam means done by himself. So, and then vipakam means the fruit of results. So there's those stupid things we've done, those fruit of results that we've done, that we have to take responsibility for, done by himself. Punjana, we're enduring them. Hrit means with his heart. Vak means words, right? Vapurbi means and body, so by his heart, words, and body. Viradham means offering, and nama, we know nama, namaha means obeisances, and namaste means unto you, unto Krishna. Jiveta, the one who lives in this way, lives, ya, anyone who, mukti pade, in the position of liberation, saha means he, and dayabhak means the rightful heir. Just like in traditional Vedic or Hindu culture, the eldest son automatically inherits whatever is left by his father. It's not like, you have to go to court and figure it out. and maybe the second brother gets this much, and a few of the daughters get this much. So automatically, just by living, basically, he's the rightful heir. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. And so for the purport, I'm going to read from Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion, because this is quoted by Rupa Goswami in our Nectar of Devotion, chapter 10. And so listen to how Prabhupada talks about this verse. He says, this statement of Srimad Bhagavatam should be the guide of all devotees. So Maharaj, you know Prabhupada's book so well. Does he say that about any other verse, that it should be the guide for all devotees? Not exactly like that, no. One time he was asked what's the most important verse in the Bhagavatam by a scholar, and he said, what is that? Well, that's the, that, and, yeah. But then he quoted that, oh gosh, my memory, that material gain should never be used for sense gratification. It's also chapter 2. Yeah. So anyway, but here it says, this statement of Srimad Bhagavatam should be the guide. So maybe those others are the Paribhasa Sutra, but this is the guide in how to live our life, this verse. So listen carefully. A devotee should not expect immediate relief from the reaction of his past misdeeds. Okay? No conditioned soul is free from such reactionary experiences, because material existence means continued suffering or enjoyment of past activities, commonly known as karma. If one has finished his material activities, then there is no more birth. This is possible only when one begins Krishna-conscious activities, because such activities do not produce reaction. Right? What is that? That's akarma, right? No reaction. Therefore, as soon as one becomes perfect in Krishna conscious activities, he is not going to take birth again in this material world. A devotee who is not perfectly freed from the resultant actions, raise your hand if you're not completely freed from resultant actions. Anyone who doesn't raise their hand is not awake, I guess, right? Like Maharaj said that to that devotee yesterday. Wake up. Yeah, right. So if we're not perfectly free from our karma, we should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments. Okay, one more raise of hand. I won't do this a lot during class, but raise your hand if you've experienced any impediments in your life. Okay, all right, good, just checking. Because I was thinking about impediments, and Queen Kunti is Maharaj mentioned Queen Kunti yesterday in his class, and she's the quintessential, she's the what they would say in America, the poster child for impediments, right? Because if you think about her life, sometimes it's said that she lived 3 lives in one life. And her first one, that she was the daughter of Maharaj Sirasena, right? And who's Krishna's grandfather. But out of generosity, Maharaj Sirasena had a really close friend named Maharaj Kunti Bhoja. And he was childless. So at a very, very young age, he gave Kunti to Maharaj Kunti Bhoja's family. So her first trial and tribulation, that she was, as an infant, she was separated from her mother practically at birth. So that's number one. That's only the first one. Then she had this carefree life as a child, obviously taken care of by Maharaj Kunti Bhoja and his household. But then, as we know the story, that part of her life ended in shame. right? The feeling, that incredible feeling of guilt and irreparable separation from her, quote unquote, illegitimate son, Karna, right? And also just like letting him go. So that was number 2. But then number 3, and probably the hardest one, she's the wife of King Maharaj Pandu, the king of Hastinapur. And she had, 5 sons. Well, that comes in a second. But then right after marriage, her husband goes on a military campaign for a year. Right? And so she's waiting and waiting. He comes back victorious. But then unexpectedly, he decides to become an ascetic. Right? So he gives up his throne. He retires to the forest. And of course, both of his wives, Kunti and Madri, follow him. And that's in those Himalayan forests, that's where the 5 sons are born. So then a few years later, she witnesses her husband's tragic death. And then her very close friend, Madri, enters the funeral pyre. Right? So she's pretty much alone with her 5 small sons. And she returns to Hastinapur, for some peace and protection. And instead of peace and protection, she gets, jealousy, intrigue, treachery, humiliation. These are supposed to be her protectors in widowhood, right? And eventually her, sons are forced to leave for the forest. So, then when she returns, she sees the terrible, mistreatment of her daughter-in-law, trying to disrobe her, right? Then another 13 years of exile. Anyway, it just goes on. And then after the war, her eldest son and all of her grandchildren are killed. So now this is not, I don't say this to minimalize our tribulations and impediments, because for us, we're not Queen Kunti, but it is incredible what she went through. And how her great fortune was she literally sometimes saw Krishna's protecting, right? She witnessed, some of those, when Krishna told Arjuna what to do with the Brahmastra that was sent by Ashwatthama, and saw the protection of the 5 Brahmastras that were sent at her 5 sons. But on one level, so I don't mean to say we shouldn't complain, because, look at Queen Kunti, we have our own crosses to bear, so to speak, but it is amazing how through all of this, she's such an amazingly powerful devotee. When such impediments should arise, he should simply think of Krishna and expect his mercy. And of course, Queen Kunti is a perfect example of that. This is the only solace. So imagine if that was our consciousness, that our only solace is Krishna. Okay. If the devotee passes his day in that spirit, it is certain that he is going to be promoted to the abode of the Lord. By such activities, he earns his claim to enter the kingdom of God. The exact word used in this verse is daya bhak. Daya bhak refers to a son's becoming the lawful inheritor of the property of the father. In a similar way, a pure devotee who is prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations in executing Krishna conscious duties becomes lawfully qualified to enter into the transcendental abode. So we're going to talk about how to get there. Not the transcendental abode, but how to get to this kind of consciousness. It's usually, well, first of all, Om Ajnanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuron Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll talk about how to try to develop this consciousness, what instructions were given to develop this consciousness. And it's usually a gradual process. And we have to be a little sensitive about this verse, by the way, just as an aside. You know how sometimes you're going through some difficulty and a devotee says, "Oh, Prabhu, it's Krishna's mercy." And you feel like saying, "I'll give you a little of Krishna's mercy," right? You know, you're not necessarily ready at that time to just hear, "No, it's all the Lord's arrangement." Sometimes we, as preachers or as a little insensitive, we push some more towards this verse, like, it's Krishna's mercy, right? It's usually a gradual process of realizing this, and it's more like we walk alongside that devotee as they gradually come to this realization. In one sense, one way to look at it is we're trying to, some tribulation in life, and then the Krishna conscious response. And sometimes it takes a while to go from here to here. And so one way to look at advancement in Krishna consciousness is that the time becomes less to when we actually come to the point where immediately, oh, it's Krishna's mercy, and we mean it deeply in our heart. And that takes some practice. I would assume all of us have had some experience in our life where we're going through something and we don't understand it, and then later, in 2020 hindsight, we say, "Oh, that was Krishna's mercy," right? Most of us know this story, so therefore I'll just tell it in a very brief about the king who lost his finger in an accident, right? And the minister said, "Oh, that was Krishna's mercy." And the king was like, "I'll give you some of Krishna's mercy," right? He put him in jail, and then he went on his tour of the kingdom. He got caught by cannibals who wanted to offer him as a sacrifice, and then they were just about to kill him, and then he saw that the finger was missing, and they let him go. And he comes back to his his kingdom, or his headquarters. He releases the minister, and he says, "You were right. That was Krishna's mercy," right? But he said, "How is it Krishna's mercy that you were in this terrible prison, damp and dirty and terrible food?" And the minister says, "Well, I usually travel with you, and I have all 10 fingers," right? So the coming to the point of that was Krishna's mercy, with our Hridvagva Purbir, with our heart, with our words, with our body, offering namaste, obeisances to Krishna. That's what we want to get to. So let's talk a little bit about how to get there. We're going to talk about 5 things, okay? Shelter, prayer, faith, timing, and then being practical. Okay? All right, so let's talk a little bit about shelter. So it really helps for us to take some time in our day, in our life, to really ask ourselves, where is our shelter? Where's our rest? Where do we find solace? Right? And often, as neophytes, or as we're just trying to come, we may sometimes feel that it's Krishna. Sometimes we often think it's linked to external circumstances. It may be, well, we're here in Zurich, right? The banking capital of the world. So it might be financial security. I don't know about devotees feel that way, but it may be our abilities, right? Just like I was watching Shikshastika Prabhu yesterday, I mentioned to Maharaj that he knows how to distribute books. Wow. And Maharaj said, yes, he has a lot of confidence, right? That's what he said, Maharaj? Yes. Yeah, he has a lot of confidence, yeah. So it may be in our abilities. It may be in our intellect, right? Our strength, our beauty. For me, it's primarily beauty. Our family, maybe ISKCON, etc. And these things are okay, but what is at the core of our consciousness? Right? Like the chitta, like Krishna's called Chitta Hari, one who steals the core of our consciousness. What is our center? What is our ultimate rest? And that clearly, from Kunti Devi's example, we're studying Rahugana's example even, as he meets Jadabharata, it has to be deeply in Krishna. And that is a internal condition of our heart. And if we have that, then we're not shaken, or at least we're not shaken as much by the different circumstances that happen to us. Because there has to be upheaval. You know, in my field, my profession is conflict resolution. And one of the main causes of conflict in the world, and even in ISKCON, is when there's unclear expectations, right? Like, let's say someone joins the temple, and again, we're not talking about Zurich, such a nice temple, but, you know, it's not clear, like, well, are they going to be taken care of if they get sick? Or what can they expect if they, you know, go from brahmachari to grihastha, or whatever, unclear. In the outside world, they usually talk about good onboarding when a new employee comes. Do they tell them everything they can expect, or they just say, well, you know, here's your computer and good luck, right? And that usually causes a lot of, or even in a marriage, if before the marriage you don't talk about, well, do we want to have children, right? Who's in charge of the finances? If you don't do that, and then you're married, and then you said, okay, so let's have children. No, I didn't want to have any children, you know. So Krishna makes expectations very clear in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, dukkhalayam, right? Like in India, if you go to a restaurant, it's often called Bhojanalaya, the alaya, the place you get food. Sometimes what is it, Maharaj? A Shodalaya? Right? So the Ashoda is medicine, the place, the alaya, you get medicine. So Krishna says dukkhalaya, the place you get dukkha, right? So he's clarifying Arjuna's and our expectation. And then he also says very similar, anityam asukam. What does sukha mean? What is asukha? No happiness, right? So there has to be upheaval. And the deeper our Krishna consciousness is, the less we are affected negatively by the upheavals of the world. One time, Prabhupada was at the Pacific Ocean, and he said, why do they call it Pacific, which means pacified, peaceful, right? And you know, if they had smartphones in those days, they would have, you know, gone to ChatGPT and find out. But Prabhupada said, because it's deep. It's peaceful because it's deep. So how deep is our shelter in Krishna? That is something we can be working on in our practice of bhakti. And when problems come in our life, our first reaction often is that we want to change the externals, the circumstances, right? But often what Krishna is usually trying to tell, yes, we have to deal with the circumstances. We'll talk about that in a minute. But he's often working on our heart. He's often working on our heart and wants to see a change from within. And through prayer, through taking shelter, we give up our illusory control over circumstances, at least the ones that we can't control. You know, does anyone know the Serenity Prayer? I guess we don't have any AA people here.
Let me know what I can change.
Yeah, that's good enough. Yeah. Krishna, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? So there are things, often when we're going through some trials and tribulations, there are some things that are beyond our control, circumstances. And if we're deep in our bhakti, then regardless of the external circumstances, we can be peaceful. So we have to be careful about blaming the imperfections of those external circumstances, because discontentment is an internal emotion. It's independent of what's going on externally. And of course, Queen Kunti is the perfect example of that. Right? She was going through, what we would consider hell. And, even saying, as Maharaj, I think he quoted this, bring it on. May these calamities happen again and again. So really, if we feel that discontentment in our heart, we should take it as an indication that Krishna is calling us closer to him. and we should take more shelter of him. Because, ultimately, because if we just blame the external circumstances, we're missing the lesson. We're missing the whole point. And ultimately, we have to abandon the idea that the external circumstances have to change for me to be happy. Because they're dictated by our karma. We read about that in Prabhupada's comment on this verse in the Nectar of Devotion. And ultimately by, Krishna's desire or sanction. So our freedom is how we respond. And our attitude, not only just how we respond, but our attitude and how we respond. As Prabhupada writes, said, it's not just the service we do, it's the service attitude. Or Rupa Goswami talks about Chesta Rupa and Bhava Rupa. Right? Chesta Rupa is it's the activities that we do, offering the arti, distributing the book, etc. And Bhava Rupa is the mood in which we do it. And we can do the chesta, we can do the external activities for a long time without much bhava, and we're instructed to have both. So when these difficulties come, and they have to come because Krishna promises it in the Bhagavad Gita, if not today, tomorrow. I mean, no, I'm not cursing anybody here, but it happens. We take shelter of Krishna. And what does that mean for us as sadhakas? It means taking shelter of the process. And that is within our control. Remember, where there's things that are, the serenity to accept the things we can't control, and the courage to accept, to change things we can. And one of the things we can control is taking shelter of the process of bhakti, hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna. I won't go into that too much today because we heard that yesterday in Maharaj's class and you hear it a lot. But let's talk a little bit about prayer. When we pray, and this is something we try to focus primarily on Krishna and not the problem. Right? Again, we don't have I know we have devotees here from Tamil background. In America, we have often a lot of people that come to the temple from backgrounds from being born and raised in India. And it would be so not interesting. It would be okay, interesting maybe. If you were Krishna and you're hearing the prayers, can my son get into Harvard University? Can this financial problem be fixed? Who knows? But we as practicing devotees are asked to focus more on Krishna than the problem. We'll give an example of this in a minute from the first canto, 7th chapter. And we can remember Shastra and what Shastra tells us, first of all, about Krishna's power. Right? Because if someone is a nice person but can't help us much, so Krishna is so powerful. It's incredible how powerful. So this is not Shastra, this is non-devotee estimations, that there's approximately 200 billion galaxies in our universe. 200 billion. And just to give you an idea of the difference between million and billion, because sometimes we just throw out the word million, billion. A million seconds is 11 days. A billion seconds is 31 years. So that gives you a little idea of the difference between million and billion. So 200 billion galaxies in our universe, and 100 billion planets in our galaxy. And again, this is not Shastra. This is just, people looking through the Webb telescope, etc. So how many planets does that mean in our universe? Well, it means 21, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 20, and 24 zeros. Right? And our universe is compared to what? What is the universe compared to as compared to so many universes? Now we're back to Shastra. A mustard seed. So imagine, anyone here cook with mustard seeds? All right, so you know what it's like if you have a bag of mustard seeds and our universe is one of those mustard seeds. My God. The smallest one, right? Yeah, right. The one that got fried easily in the ghee. So Prabhupada writes in the purport to the CC, the author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita has warned the neophyte devotees to be seriously on guard against the pitfall of neglecting knowledge about Krishna in regard to how great he is. Only when one knows Lord Krishna's greatness can one firmly put one's unflinching faith in him. Okay, so when we're praying to Krishna, we can focus on how powerful he is. And then it's such a nice combination, these two, and how sometimes we say his greatest quality is Bhakta Vatsala, that he loves his devotee. And I did a quick search in database today just for the words inclined to his devotees. And it comes up so often. It's amazing how often just those words, inclined to his devotees. So here's one of hundreds of quotes. That is Krishna's mercy to the devotee. Krishna is equal to everyone, but he is specially inclined to the devotees, who are engaged in his service with love and faith. And one time, one of Prabhupada's disciples, this was in the Philippines, got a letter from his brother, who was a Christian, and sent him I don't know if you have these in Zurich. I don't even know if they have them in America anymore. They used to distribute these we used to call them tracts, right? They're like little pamphlets, just about this big. And they, anyway, this one was called A Hindu Who Becomes a Christian, right? And so this devotee was showing it was telling Prabhupada that he got this. And Prabhupada said some things, and then he takes out a picture, and he's not showing it to the devotees. He's just looking at it himself with great love and devotion. And then he turns it around and he says, it was a picture of Rukmini Dwarkadish in Los Angeles. And he says, anyway, our God is the nicest God. So this is a very important meditation for us, super important. I don't know how we can almost remain devotees if we don't focus on this point that Krishna cares for us. Krishna is inclined to his devotees. So this combination, someone who's the most powerful, like 20 times 24 zeros, planets in this one universe and the mustards, and that person is also inclined to us. Bhaktosi Maharaj quoted this yesterday, I think. Bhaktosi me sakacheti. Yeah. Okay, so then we meditate on this. Krishna is most powerful, and he's most loving, and then we can turn whatever issue we have over to Krishna and declare our surrender to him and our dependence upon him. And then, so this is the next. So that's taking shelter of hearing, chanting, and thinking of Krishna in this way. And so the next point is about prayer, because when sometimes when there's problems in our life, we become fearful. Right? What's that verse about? Is it in the 11th canto, Marsh? About how fear is. Viparyos Smriti. What is that? What is Smriti means remembrance.
Reversed. Instead of thinking ourselves to be Krishna's servant, we think Krishna is our competitor.
Right. And then we become fearful. Right? So fear happens, and sometimes we don't feel so connected to Krishna's mercy. So we have to kind of, we don't have to, but we should willingly trust the caring and unflinching affection that Krishna has for his servants, even his struggling servants, even his wannabe servants. and it's a what's the word I was looking for? It's a proactive choice to redirect our consciousness, not just away from the circumstances, and dwell on Krishna's words. Konteya pratidanihi name bhakta pranashati. We have to work on that. So let's look at Arjuna's example, okay, in the 7th chapter of the 1st canto. So the Brahmastra's thrown, he's about to annihilate or capture whatever Ashvatthama, and so Ashvatthama, last-ditch effort, boom, throws a Brahmastra. And these Brahmastras are, they're the power of Brahma. They always get their man, so to speak. And as you're saying the mantra, you state the name of the person you're aiming it at, and that's it, finished. Right? So What does Arjuna do? The Brahmastra is coming at him. Now, if it were me, I would have said, Krishna, help, right? That would have been my reaction. But listen to what Arjuna does. First he says, "Oh, my dear Lord Sri Krishna, you are the almighty personality of Godhead. There's no limit to your different energies." So he says, you have all these different energies. Therefore, only you are competent to instill fearlessness in the heart of your devotees. Please, so indirectly, please give me some fearlessness, right? Everyone in the flames of material miseries can find the path of liberation only in you. So that's prayer number 1. Okay, so you would think, okay, now he's going to ask for help. No, not yet. You are the original personality of Godhead who expands himself all over creation and is transcendental to material energy. You have cast away the effects of material energy by dint of your spiritual potency. So you have much more potency than whatever this material thing is coming at me. You are always situated in eternal bliss and transcendental knowledge. That was number 2. Number 3, and yet, though you are beyond the purview of material energy, so you're transcendental, you execute the 4 principles of liberation, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, characterized by religion and so on, for the ultimate good of conditioned souls. So he's kind of hinting, can you do some good for me? Right? That was number 3. Thus, you descend as an incarnation to remove the burden of the world and benefit your, here it says friends, because he's, right, his relationship with Krishna. Especially those who are your exclusive devotees, there's devotees, and are constantly wrapped in meditation upon you. Oh, and then he's finally, after 4 prayers, "Oh Lord of Lords, how is it that this dangerous effulgence is spreading all around? What does it come from? I do not understand it." So taking shelter. So in the Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada quotes that there's 3 kinds of prayers, right? In the Skanda Purana, there's a statement about submission unto the lotus feet of the Lord. It is stated there that those who are sober devotees, hopefully that's all of us, can offer their submission to Krishna in the following 3 ways. Sampartana Mika, which very feelingly offering prayers. Dainya Bodhika, humbly submitting oneself. And Lalasa Mayi, desiring some perfectional stage. So of those 3, the first one is relevant primarily for us. Okay? So Sampartanatmika. Sam means complete. And Pratana means prayer. So it means, complete surrender, trying to overcome that abyss between us and Krishna in our life, right? And this mood of, and it's easier to develop this sometimes when we're going through difficulties in our life, of acknowledging and our own incapacity and taking shelter of Krishna. And that is the essence of this kind of prayer, of the prayer that we should be trying to offer to Krishna. That I don't have the strength to deal with this, Krishna. My only hope, what we said in the beginning about taking, where's our shelter? My only hope is your lotus feet. My only hope. And entering into that mood of prayer. Sometimes we talk about how important prayer is, but how often do we take the time to really pray? Prayer is such an entering into our relationship with Krishna. And it's said sometimes, of course, we can, in the Nectar Devotion, we can recite great prayers, but we can also develop our own. But when we recite great prayers, it's important not only the words, but the mood. Like, for example, in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Sharanagati, which Sharanagati and this first level of prayer is pretty much identical. So there may be some things, if you read Sharanagati, like the first time I read it, or the first few times I read it, I said, well, it doesn't relate to me so much. Right? Like, for example, here's just three stanzas from Dainya, the humility. Day by day I grew, and soon began playing with other boys. Shortly my powers of understanding emerged. I read and studied my lessons incessantly. How many of you studied incessantly in school? Okay, so you might say, well, this doesn't really, I'm not Bhakti, I didn't do that. Traveling from place to place, proud of my education. How many of us were proud of our education? I grew wealthy. Raise your hand if you have grown wealthy. Maybe some of you have. There's nothing wrong with it, but okay. and maintain my family with undivided attention. Oh, Lord Hari, I forgot you. Now in my old age, Bhakti Vinod is sad. How many of you are in old age? Okay, so 2 of us. Well, you're working on it, Prabhu, but you're not there yet. So we might say, oh, well, turn the page, find another prayer, because this one doesn't relate to. No, but we can enter into the mood of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, even if the actual words don't, and this mood of humility. Okay, so that's the idea of prayer. So we've talking about, what have we talked about so far? We talked about taking shelter, external circumstances, prayer, and now let's talk a little bit about faith. Because we are asked, literally, Shastra is asking us to trust that we're never alone, we're never abandoned, we're not forgotten. Right? Hrideshe Arjuna Tishti. Krishna's in our heart. So this, again, this kind of living by faith it's intentional. This is within our control. It's intentional. It's aggressive. It's a choice that we make. And we walk more by faith than by sight, because often Krishna's workings are they're around the curve, right? And, he has his plan for us. And Krishna, and his plan is working on it whether we're conscious of it or not. Whether we're aware of it or not. As we said, right, in 20/20 hindsight, I'm sure if we went around the room, we could ask everyone to give an example of having that 20/20 hindsight. Mine's a little embarrassing, but I'll say it anyway. That a good friend of mine at that time, Rohini Nandan Prabhu, I was brahmachari for about 12 years, and I decided, okay, time to get married. And he was arranging something, and after talking to this Mataji once, she just told him, nah, forget it. And I was like, oh, I felt so sorry for myself. And, terrible. And then later, actually, Badrinarayan Maharaj arranged my marriage. And, I've been married now 37 years and happily married. So, at the time, I was feeling sorry for myself, when that Mataji rejected me. Oh. But now I look back and say, oh, that was Krishna's mercy. Right? So I think we all have one of those, that was Krishna's mercy. We each all have 10 of those in our life. So that faith that Krishna is with us, that trust in Krishna, it's something to work on, and is within our control at least to pray for that faith. And then lastly, talking about timing, that you ever notice that Krishna has a different watch than we have? Right? He does things in his own time, again according to our karma and also his kindness. And we can be waiting sometimes to see what his direction, which way should we go. That can be tricky. That joke. The devotee goes up to the Lord and says, "My dear Lord, what is what's the money called here? Francs? What is 10 million francs for you?" And the Lord says, 10 million francs is just a little change. "My dear Lord, what's eternity for you?" Eternity, it's just a moment. And the devotee thinks, "Krishna, could you spare a little change?" And Krishna says, "Yes, just a moment." So, time looks different sometimes. And so to remain faithful to Krishna as, the time factor and knowing when to, and praying to Krishna for guidance, when to wait and when to act. Prabhupada would quote that. Is it a Hindi saying? If something's auspicious, do it immediately. Does anyone know that? Oh, maybe it's Chandika Pandit, but Prabhupada would quote it. And then he said it, and he told my Guru Maharaj this because he would quote this a lot. And he said, if something's inauspicious, Bhagme, put it off, put it off. So if we develop this this mood of taking shelter of Krishna in difficult times and entering into a mood of prayer, having faith in him, and understanding that, his timing and our timing may, our desire for something to happen yesterday may not be Krishna's plan. And then dealing practically with the situation, then we can really enter into the mood of this verse. Hare Krishna. So any questions or comments? Yes, Maharaj?
Just a short comment. I always found it interesting, this verse, this word, su samik shamana.
Mm.
So su, just to give a brief thing, su means actually expanded. Therefore you have sukha, ka means space. So when space is very large, you get happy. It's like in your body, everything's flowing, you feel good. And du means limited, compressed, restricted. So when the space is restricted, you have constipation, you feel real bad.
I guess, yeah.
And then you have sama, which means equal, and iksha, which means to see. And you have mana, which means the mind. So when your vision is like in the realm of eternity and reality, and sama, and you start seeing things, everything equally is coming from, all is all something. This is all Krishna's energy. And you see that, then the mind becomes pacified.
Nice.
Not only pacified, but it's translated as eager. Then when you see everything properly, then you become eager to get Krishna's mercy.
Thank you. Wonderful. Other comments, questions? Yes, Prabhu?
Question is, what's the difference between praying, like you made a point earlier, you said you go to Krishna and you ask Krishna to, just, I want this and please help me out or whatever. Or what's the difference between asking the Lord in that way and praying the Lord for something?
What's the difference between asking the Lord for something and praying?
And then praying to the Lord, what's the difference between
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Is asking a kind of prayer? We sometimes say that. We sometimes say that it's not, it's pious, right? Chatur vidha bhajante mam jana sukriti norjuna arto jigyasa artarti gyani cha bharatar. That it's good that people come to the temple and say, oh Lord, give me a Mercedes-Benz because my friends have BMWs and I want to, impress them. Because it's better than, at least you're acknowledging it's considered pious, right? But it's obviously not pure bhakti. So it's sometimes, we often say it's a prayer, but it wouldn't really fall under the definition of prayer as Nectar of Devotion defines prayer, right? Reciting prayers of great acharyas or ourselves praying for, pure devotional service. Prabhupada's someplace, do you know where it is, Maharaj, or anyone? There is a place where he says sometimes grihastas pray for material things out of necessity, but it's not considered, pure devotional service. Anyabi lashita sunyam. So asking for the, we sometimes say it's a prayer, but it's not really a prayer. And now we're kind of defining English terms, right? But we define those three kinds of prayers, and ours is especially the prayer of Sharanagati. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya vardham. To accept things favorable, to reject things unfavorable, to think of Krishna as our protector and maintainer, to develop this mood of humility. As you can see here, a lot of what we're talking about today is focused on humility. And humility is not so much thinking ourselves bad, but just thinking about how great Krishna is and how we want to serve him.
I think that was from Kunti's prayers about sometimes the householders have to, out of necessity. That was about, please free me from my attachment.
Oh, right, from the Vrishnis. Yeah. Other comments, questions? Yes.
Sometimes I experience being in a situation where being so overwhelmed by emotions that it becomes difficult to focus the mind on Krishna.
Really?
It's
Sorry, I was being sarcastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and even though there might be a voice inside saying that it's time to surrender or to pray, it's not always that easy. Can you share some of your experience?
Well, when that happened, when things seem overwhelming and it's hard to get into the mood of prayer.
Yeah, especially when there's so many emotions.
Yeah. Well, the first simplest thing is turn off all electronics.
Second day.
What?
Second day.
Second, oh, that's right. Yeah, Marge. I'm on a digital I'm on a digital fast. I'm only using my phone and computer for email and WhatsApp for service and nothing else. And I told Mara it's a 30-day fast, and I'm on my second day. So, yeah. But seriously, that is one of the most disturbing things. Is just at least Maharaj and I can remember when there was no computers and there was no, and as Maharaj, I think you mentioned this in class yesterday, it was like over $2 a minute to make a phone call, except local. So no, we didn't know everything that was going on in the world or the world of ISKCON and this, blah, 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 blah. And now it's, so the first thing, and I don't use social media at all, zero, never use it. So the first thing is get away from things that are really causing a lot. And sometimes the first thing is electrical things. Okay, so having done that, then I think for each of us it may be a little different, but what works for us to calm the mind? Like some people say they go for a walk and they listen to it, or they listen to a lecture, or they chant some japa, or they go in front of the deities, or they talk to a friend. But, something that brings us out of rajas and tamas and at least to sattva. Right? And sattva is not easy, and that's why, I say these things, because they really don't bring a lot of sattva. Right? So, for me, sometimes it's, I have a couple of really close friends, and sometimes for me it's calling them and talking to them, and they, they put my head up back on straight, so to speak, and I find that's really, so I think for each of us we have to find what works for us, or what combination of things work for us. And as an aside, by the way, I like to talk about friendship as a verb, even though we know it's a noun, right? It's a thing, but it's something we have to work on. And we were talking about a devotee recently who we didn't think they had a lot of friends. And that's one of the ways we struggle in Krishna consciousness. It's so important. And the reason I say it's a verb is something we may have to work on. We may think, oh, okay, I should, chant extra rounds. We should chant extra rounds. But actually, we should sometimes take the time to work on friendships. Actually go out of our way. Here's a person who I think is swajatiya, like-minded. So why don't I go out of my way to try to befriend them and develop a deep friendship? Because I can say for myself, the things that have taken me out of different challenges in my life has been having close friends in Krishna consciousness. So there's so many ways to answer your question, right? But there's a couple of ways. And like we said, everyone's going to have trials and tribulations. So having it's even said sometimes that sometimes one of the best associations is peers who are a little more advanced than you. Of course, we also know Mahat Sevam Dwara Mohir Vimukta, associating the great devotees. But also Jiva Goswami talks about peers that are a little more advanced than you. Is really, really helpful. Because, anyway, I've had 2 spiritual masters who fell down, over the years. And so having friends was what really got me through that. Is that all right? Yes, Prabhu?
Там это самое, когда царь вернулся с охоты, его живым оставили.
I agree. What did he say?
Когда царя оставили живым, он сразу пришел в тюрьму,
Is someone going to translate this? What language was that? Oh, okay. Well, it's all Greek to me.
You told the story about the king who didn't have
Yeah.
didn't have his finger, and he said when that king came back, first he went to the jail and
Да. И царь там уже царь стал мудрым, и говорит, что спасибо тебе, что палец у меня эта милость была.
and that king.
Oh, he thanked him. Yes, yes. Yeah, he thanked him. Yes.
И царь уже стал мудрым и говорит, что хорошо, мне-то была милость, а ты-то в тюрьму попал. А он говорит, что я все время с вами ездил, и у меня были все пальцы, меня кончили это обязательно.
Он про это же сказал.
А?
Он про это сказал. He just and he said that secretary, he was the secretary.
Minister, secretary.
Yeah, he said, but because I was traveling always with you and I have all my fingers,
Yeah.
so I would be.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. I think our time is up, right? Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Grace Braj Bihari Prabhu ki
Nice class, as usual.
You said that often that expectations are not clear.
Right.
But I was aware that as soon as you have expectations, you're actually destined that these expectations are being tried, that they're not met, and then you get disturbed.
Yes, they're not met. That's true.
Yes.
But like as an organization, we should, like, let's say we say, yes, we're going to take care of you financially if you get sick. So we should do it. If we don't do it, then you're right. It's a total fly. You have that expectation. But I mean,
So are expectations something what you should work on to make them more clear, or you should try to?
I was talking about it almost from a managerial point of view. Yeah, our expectation, we do expect Krishna. The section of Metro Devotion is called Expecting the Lord's Mercy. So we have the expectation that Krishna will be merciful to us. Yeah. But unclear, as I was kind of talking about it almost from a managerial point of view, that or like I said, prior to getting married, you know, you don't clarify things, and it can cause a lot of conflict. But if our expectation is Krishna has
So
to,
you're saying that expectations are actually good,
they
that they should be clear.
should be, whether they're good or bad, they should be clear.